What is up? What's going on, guys? Trizzle here, tuning in, bringing you guys another great 3-star tutorial. Today, we're actually going to be getting into a pretty sexy raid. I will tell you that you may have seen this attack out in the wilds before. Personally, I actually didn't even know this attack existed until about a month ago. But in terms of the meta and where things lie, I will say that it actually stacks fairly high in terms of ease of execution, overall strength, adaptability bases that you can apply it to. You just got to get a couple elements down, which of course is what we're going to get into, the whole point of the tutorial. With that lead in, guys, you might have seen the title card. Today we are going to be getting into Town Hall 9 Red Witch. Not that there's a Town Hall 10 version, but who knows, there might be. With Red Witch, guys, it's very basic. Essentially, the whole concept of Red Witch is a witch slap attack. Basically, you sub out the golem for the Valks, so you still have that tanking ability, but you trade out that tank for a lot of DPS, which actually works very well. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the army, guys. With this particular army, we're going to be rocking 3 Wallbreakers, 4 healers, 3 minions, 7 Valks, 8 witches, and of course CC bowlers, the glue that binds. Of course, that's going to bring us into the spells. Now, I do want to let you know, we actually, very similar to Witch Slap and maybe even Bogo Wipe, I have to double check that tutorial, but the bottom line with the spells is that it's all about accessing the xbows. What I mean by that is that the standard version is going to bring you a 1 heal, 2 rage, 1 jump, 1 poison, and of course that max skeleton spell in the CC. The second version of this particular army is just going to bring 1 heal, 1 rage, 2 jumps, 1 poison, 1 max skeleton spell. This all depends on if you can access the xbows, which actually leads into the tips for success, guys. Of course, with this particular army, the 2 jump version works best where the xbows aren't close together at all. The function of the jumps, of course, is to access the xbows. The 2 rage version works the best where the xbows are adjacent to each other, where they can both be accessed without difficulty with the 1 jump spell. Of course, max Town Hall 9 troops only. It can only be used on bases you would normally Witch Slap. And then, of course, the 3-star max bases in war consistently. As always, your heroes need to be at least level 18 plus. Of course, you gotta practice, guys. Practice, memorize those raid objectives. And of course, practice some more. And that's gonna lead us, of course, into the actual raid objectives. So, starting with number 1. You got to determine the best side of the base to attack. You want to make sure that the CC cannot flank your army. Number 2, you want to approach from the side of the base so that you can access both xbows by the time you use your jump spell, S in parentheses. If possible, use those minions if they cannot be targeted at the very beginning to start cutting the funnel on the corners. Of course, number 4 would be deploy your 4 witches, then 2 healers, target them on 1 corner, then the other 4 witches and the other 2 healers on the opposite corner. Now, of course, number 5, if you couldn't use your minions before the witches, now is when you'll use them to help establish the funnel and get those corner structures cut ASAP. Number 6, guys. If the Archer Queen cannot be targeted, you're going to deploy her in the middle. Otherwise, you'll want to drop your Valks as soon as the funnel is well established. Make sure that when you drop your Valks, any structures that are left up are going to act as breadcrumbs to lead them into the base at the center. Number 8, deploy your Archer Queen in the middle. Number 9, of course, with the 2 rage version, you want to deploy your first rage spell on the first layer of the base, extending past the walls just a little bit to help those Valks break into the base, followed by your Wallbreakers. Of course, number 9 with the 2 jump version is going to be to deploy those Wallbreakers. Number 10, deploy your king and your CC bowlers. Number 11, deploy the jump spell to access the core. Number 12, deploy your poison spell as the CC troops converge. Number 13, deploy your heal spell on the Valks and the kill squad as they move into the core. Number 14, if you are using the 2 rage version, you want to use that second rage to help the bowlers and the Valks take out the core. Now, I've got a pro tip for you guys, and you'll pick this up as we get into the replays. You want to deploy your rage so it covers the second expo, and then drop that skeleton spell on the second expo directly under the rage, so that your skeletons are under that rage spell. If you're using the 2-jump version, step number 14 is going to be to use the skeleton spell on the second expo to distract as the kill squad powers through the core, then use that last jump to access the second expo. Now, don't forget, guys, you can't be too hesitant on using your king ability to power through the core. Don't hold it too long. You don't want to let the health go past halfway. And then with your AQ ability, of course, you want to use that to keep her alive till the end. And then, of course, collect your 3-star, guys. I'm not exaggerating with this attack. It is extremely strong, and that's why we're going to get into the actual replays, so you guys can see this in action. So, starting, of course, with the funnel, we're going to go ahead and try our very best to get the funnel established. So, you can bring in those minions if you can. They're not going to be targeted. Then you're going to bring in the witches so that you get those corners cut for that funnel, because the main goal is to get all your Valkyries going into the core. So as the witches start doing their thing, it's going to be okay if one or another side ends up doing a little bit of a walk, because with the DPS from the Valks and the bowlers, the core is usually taken care of. Rage spell down to bring the Valks under higher DPS, Wallbreakers in, jump spell into the core, and then from there you really just want to watch the direction of your troops. Typically keeping the Valks under the heal is more important, and then also the rage. You basically rage to take out the expos. So for some weird reason, the Valks do go on some sort of a field trip. I wouldn't necessarily follow the Valks with the rage. You want to make sure that you keep taking out the expo as a top priority for yourself. So you can see, guys, with this particular attack, very, very strong. I think by the end of it, didn't remember on this particular raid how many troops I had up, but for those of you that are looking for an attack that very easy to execute, you just got to cut your funnel, and it's actually got a higher hit rate than Witch Slap, oddly enough, because the attack in and of itself is inspired by Witch Slap. But one thing you'll notice if you do enough Witch Slap raids is that every now and then it just falls short. You can have even decent heroes. It doesn't necessarily have to be max heroes, max queen, whatever. But there's been a few times where the base selection was okay, but for whatever reason, it just petered out. So having those Valkyries to add a ton of DPS to the overall, troops that go into the core does make quite a bit of a difference. So again, you want to use those minions to cut that funnel if possible. From there, you're going to do the 4 witches and the 2 healers on each side. Once they cut the funnel, as the skeletons usually make their way in, you can drop your Archer Queen, make sure she's not targeted. And then from there, you're going to release all your Valks, so that way they all go into one rage, so that the Valks can break into that first layer of the base. Wallbreakers, King, Bowlers, jump into the core, heal spell, poison as the CC troops converge, and then you want to make sure you get that second rage spell over the core. Whatever troops go in there, whether it's the bowlers, the Valks, you just got to take down the expos, dropping that max skeleton spell under rage right on the expo, and a lot of times the skellies, take out the expo, and it makes this such a well put together attack. I know at different levels in the game, especially at Town Hall 11 level, you'll actually see a lot of players drop a rage along with a skeleton spell on the Archer Queen to be able to take her out. That way you can actually run a Lalo without having to deal with the Queen. And I'm even talking about max Queen, guys. Level 40, level 50 Queens. It doesn't have to be a low level Queen to really fall victim to the skeleton spell under rage. Even things like the Skelly Donut, which I'm actually going to probably make a tutorial for because it's really sexy attack. It's something that you're just using what the game gives you, looking at the base. If your CC is centered and it's right next to the Archer Queen, just takes out such a big part of the game. by dealing with those under rage. Not that I want to talk about that in the Red Witch tutorial, but it does actually matter. On this attack, I think it was kind of a troll base. You would think that, he's a Town Hall 9, but there's a reason why those xbows are actually offset like that. Believe it or not, a lot of players, when they're attacking, they would still end up failing on a base like this just because of where everything's located. Even having them outside like that can be a little bit tough to deal with. So I wouldn't say that this is not a well thought of base, but if you have any type of knowledge of the game in order to break bases down, it definitely ends up being a lot easier. Alright, so as you can see, the troops have no problem working their way through. It's all about establishing that corner funnel at the beginning, making sure that, when you either use your minions or the witches to cut those funnels, you're then able to get the Valks go all into the core along with the CC bowlers. And that's ultimately what holds the attack together. Even on this attack, which I guess is seemingly a dead base, but because it is a max Town Hall 10, I wanted to show you guys, just because the DPS is very similar to a max Town Hall 9. So it actually is still a good representation. So of course, again, you got to establish those corner funnels. You got to make sure that the Valks aren't going to go wherever the heck they're going to go. When you try to get everything established with your kill squad to go into the core. You don't want the queen to be targeted like I did on this raid, but I didn't really have a choice because I needed to work on some of the structures, and at the same time, because there were so many outside structures, it definitely had to go down one way or another. Luckily, I'm able to keep the queen up, the healers end up redirecting, and then from there, everything just flows. The Valks go into the core, jump spell to take everything, carry everything through, bowlers, of course, heal those up, and then the rage is typically going to be over that second expo, being that the base was, I guess the Infernos and the Expos had died. It's still probably, want to use it on a high target, defensive structure, but in any event, it's still able to take out a max Town Hall 10 DPS in terms of the defenses, which again I still feel is still a good representation, because if you were a max Town Hall 9 attacking a base like this, let's say in war, the chances of you probably not getting the 3-star might end up being a little bit on the higher end, but with the level 30 queen, I'm able to get in there and still take care of business. So only have a couple more attacks to show you guys, but this is a really strong raid, something that I feel that will definitely help you guys. I know a lot of people, are very much aware of Witch Slap. Guarantee that you've done at least 1 or 2 Witch Slaps attacks in your wars. But the one thing that is lacking with Witch Slap is the fact that depending on how the core of the army goes, because most people when they use Witch Slap use a 2-jump version, so you not only lose out on that 1 extra raid spell, but you really don't have the extra DPS going into the core. So having those Valks instead of the Golem gives you the best of both worlds. You get the tanking, you get the benefit of that extra DPS, and it's all about, again, establishing the corner funnel. Once that's done, everything flows through the base. Of course, having that raid spell to take out the Expos with that Max Skelly spell on the second Expo, it goes a very long way. You don't realize it, but such a small step actually adds up and goes. It takes an attack that may or may not always have, what you would call a guaranteed expectation. Because generally speaking, when you go into any type of war situation where you have to attack a max base, you generally want to give yourself the highest chance of getting that 3-star. I know it kind of is common sense and goes without saying, but it's still one of those things where not everybody knows how to break the base down, so execution, everything comes into play. But with all said and done, we're gonna go ahead and bring you guys this final attack. That way you can again see that it works on different bases. from trophy bases to war bases. You just need to look for a couple main elements. One, you don't want anything that's super duper compact. You got to be able to access the xbows using the jump spells. I actually have a preference, which would be the standard version, which is the 1 jump version, but I have also used the 2 jump version to 3-star. So once you've got those corner funnels established, guys, you're going to bring in your Valks, you're going to rage them, get your Wallbreakers down, king, bowlers, jump into the core. You're going to heal the Valks as they start to take a little bit of fire. And then, of course, your second rage and skeleton spell is going to be to deal with the xbows. Now, I did make a mistake on this raid. If I'm not mistaken, I ended up dropping the skelly spell after the expo went down, not paying attention. But, you know, it still ends up, you know, taking care of business, being that the raid itself is actually very strong. Like I said, it's got a higher hit rate than Witch Slap. But you definitely need to know what you're doing. You don't want to go into this raid not knowing, you know, the main key elements, which, like I mentioned, the tips for success. But, you know, the one key thing that, you know, I will preach and I will mention, excuse me, and I've said it a few times already, is the fact that establishing the corner funnel is paramount. If your Valks circle, I'm not going to say you're going to lose the raid. But if they don't go into the core, the chances of you know, being able to, you know, turn this into a guaranteed triple, you know, that actually falls a lot lower. So, you know, you definitely want to be careful. Make sure that you're extra, I don't want to say generous with the funnel, but you absolutely have to use those minions. Use your common sense. Don't do anything, you know, too hasty. You're actually better off dropping a Valkyrie to make sure that those corner funnel, the corner funnel is very well established, so that way at least the rest of your Valks can go into the core. And this will be the very last video that I show you guys. I ended up making a mistake on this attack, but you know, it just illustrates that the attack itself is very versatile. I think my pinky had hit the queen as I was dropping the troops, excuse me, and for whatever reason the queen comes down, and then I'm like, oh crap. So I drop those minions real quick to try to make sure she doesn't circle the entire base, and then from there I get the Valks down. I was able to get them going up to the top, same compartment as the queen, and that actually ends up working to my favor because queen redirects, witches redirect. Of course, the king, bowlers going on that side, jump down, bring everything into the core, heal the Valks. Then you're going to use that second rage over the core, dropping that max spelly on the second expo, and then it was just pretty much 3 stars and good night. I know that this particular base, oh man, I'm starting to get tired of it. I don't know why people keep using this base. The fact that I'm showing you how to 3-star, you know, there's so many different ways to 3-star this base, obviously, but when it comes to execution, the fact that this is such a strong raid, you want to make sure that you've at least satisfied the elements that I've mentioned. But with that being said, guys, I don't want to keep going on and on forever and ever, but I definitely recommend that you guys practice this attack, work it into your bag of tricks, because it's a very solid attack. As far as ground attacks go, to me it's a higher, it's a more, I want to say consistent raid when you compare it to, let's say, straight up Witch Slap, but you got to know what you're doing. Alright, so with that all being said, of course I definitely appreciate you guys watching. It really does mean the world to me. I love being able to teach you guys and give back, you know, as much knowledge as possible. So the amount of time, energy, effort that I put into making these tutorials is more a reflection of my passion for the game. As always, you know, I really appreciate you guys, you know, showing love, showing support, and of course, gonna continue bringing you the hottest, illest, dab one time content in Clash of Clans until, I don't know, maybe until they stop supporting the game, who knows. But until then, really appreciate you guys watching. Trizzle tuning out.